In this Farming Simulator 25 field guide, I'm going to work you through all of the stages of working a field in Farming Simulator 25. The process is quite confusing and there's some steps that you may or may not want to do depending on your farm setup, but we're going to walk through all of the different stages to ensure that you get max yield out of your field, or 100% yield bonus as it's also called. So there are various different stages that you can work towards, and they have a cost of time and also equipment and sometimes supplies that are needed to do it as well. We'll work through all of those. Now, to help make this as clear as possible, what I suggest you use is the start farm on a new save. And you can play around with this, learn it as you go, and then work that into your actual farm. So in the Farming Simulator 25, what we're going to do is click on Career, go down through these saves and find an empty slot. So that's what we're going to work with here. Double click that and then set the presets like this. Go New Farmer. Make sure you got plenty of money so you can just mess around with things. Turn off Guided Intro Tour, but leave it with Start Farm and leave Economic Difficulty as Easy. So then you're matching what I'm doing here and you can learn as we go. We're also going to cover some of the new things in Farming Simulator 25, like the GPS system, which enables you to have some steering help when you are working the fields. So that's really cool. Let's go. So here we are on the farm, and the nice thing with this is you've got some equipment that you can use straight away and get started with work in the farm. You've got enough to grow the crops, so you can cultivate, you can seed, and you can harvest. And if you go through the start tour of the farm, it will walk you through those stages. So if you're on the PC and you hit the tab button, you will flick through different vehicles that we've got here. So we've got this vehicle here that is attached to a cultivator. Tab again, we've got another vehicle here that we can use. And this one we can use to seed, and this one here we can use to harvest. And if that's all you want to do, that's fine. That's enough for you to do that. Now I'm just going to jump out the combine harvester here, and we're going to have a little look at some fields. So you start out on this guide farm, or the start farm, with 4 fields. So you can see them here. We've got a field over to the left, to the right, and in the center here. And if we have a little look at these, if you go up to them, you can see what is going on with the field. So this one says this is farmland number 4. It's owned by me. Fertilized 0% and needs lime. So we're going to talk about that. That's one of the stages we're going to cover with this field guide. But if we have a little look at this one here, this is a field that is ready. It's all ready to harvest. And you can see it says ready to harvest. It's got a yield bonus as well, but it's only 37%. So if we had done all of the stages of the field development, that yield bonus would be 100%, and you will see that at the end. So we would get a lot more crop out of this field when we come to harvest it if the yield bonus is at 100%. However, you may not want to do all of the stages because they take time, they cost money, and you might not just be able to afford that cost if you're only going to work one field. So it makes sense when you're working with more fields to consider all of the stages, but maybe not if you're working 1 or 2 fields. So we'll go all through that. This 37% yield bonus, how was that achieved? Well, it's hard to say for sure because it could be in a variety of different ways because you get a bonus for different stages of field work that you do. But I would assume one of them would have been cultivating because that's pretty key. So cultivating or plowing a field, which is the critical stage that you do here, and you can do this with the equipment that you've got. This field has been plowed, so we could then seed this if we wanted. That first stage will get you a 15% yield bonus. And there's various other things you can do to increase the yield bonus. So one thing you can do is fertilize the field. That will get you a 22.5% bonus the first time you do it, and you can do that twice. So we're going to show both of those as we work this field. So that's going to get you a 45% bonus overall if you go for both. So we couldn't have done both here because otherwise this would say 45%. So we must have done maybe one of those, and the cultivating could have been what has been done to this field. But there's also other things you can do. You can weed the field, and if you get the weeds caught quickly and there are no weeds when your field grows, you'll get a 20% yield bonus on top. So that's not been done on there by the looks of things. You can also lime the field, and you can see this field does indeed need lime, and that's good then for 3 seasons or 3 harvests, but it drops each year in Farming Simulator 25 as far as I'm aware. So you get 15% the first year. If you don't relime the second year, that'll drop to 10. The third year, it'll drop to 5. And then there's a couple of other things you can do that are much smaller bonuses. You've got mulching, which is done after that field is harvested. You can mulch the remaining stuff, what's called the stubble, and that will give you a 2.5% bonus. And then you can also, another option you can do as we're working the field after seeding is rolling, which presses down little stones back into the field and will give you a 2.5% bonus. Add all those together and you should come to a 100% bonus. Now, that's all cool, but what about if you need to know how to do that? That's what we're going to cover here. Now, a couple of other things I want to cover before we get into the first stage. Like many activities in life, economies of scale will help lower the overall cost per field. And what that means is if you buy or lease equipment, putting that to work on larger or more fields and working those fields swiftly will lower the costs as you're spreading them across multiple fields. So that's important. So working just one field as we're doing here may not make sense. For example, a mulcher is quite a lot of money to invest and only gives you a 2.5% yield bonus. If we're using it on one small field, we're probably not going to get that money back. The other thing you can do if you don't want to work manually is have AI workers work your fields for you. And that makes life nice and easy, but you'll have to pay out for the AI worker to work on the field. But I will show you how that works as well as we go through the series. Makes life very, very easy, but at a cost. And that's going to come out of your bottom line on the farm. So it can be good in some senses, because if you're doing something like spreading lime and you don't know how to do it, you can waste a lot of money spreading the lime as opposed to a AI worker who will do it nice and efficiently for you. Now, if you're on Farming Simulator 25 versus 22, the good news is there's some new GPS tools in here which make working fields much easier. And you can basically replicate what the AI system does, but have some little helpers that will enable you to work the field, but with a little bit of guidance, which I will show you with the steering assist tools, which are really cool. So that's going to help you work these fields far better than ever before and not waste so much of your supplies like lime or fertilizer or anything like that. So I will cover that as well. So what I'm going to do in a minute is show you how we would work the field stage by stage in the playlist, and at the end we will see the next part at the end of the video showing the next recommended one. The first one I'm going to cover is plowing and cultivating. So this field here has been plowed, but I'm going to cultivate over it just so you can see the process, and I think it makes sense in the order that I'm going to show. So you wouldn't normally cultivate over a plowed field because it's already done, but I want to work on the center field because it's a nice shape to get started as a beginner. Now, a couple of other things are important before we start, one of which is the time that you spend on the fields. So what I suggest you do before we start is hit escape and go to your settings down here, change your settings here, and change your time scale down to real time. This gives you the most amount of time to work on your fields, and then when you're done, you can go and sleep and fast forward to the next day or the next month. Now, a little bit confusing in Farming Simulator 25 is we have this here, days per month. So one day is actually set to be 1 month in the game. So you want to be getting a lot of work done in the day, which is why I suggest slowing this down to real time so you can work multiple fields in the same day. Seasonal growth means that you can only grow certain crops in certain times of the year. So we're going to have a little look at that. So what I'm going to show here is planting wheat, but you can plant various different crops and the process is largely the same, but some vary. If you hit escape again and have a little look at the crop calendar on the left-hand side, this shows you what you can plant and what you can harvest when. So we're in August, and the reason why the game starts in August is if we go all the way down and see here, we're in harvest season for wheat. We're also in harvest season for canola, and that's what we've got on the fields here as the examples that you then go and harvest. So wheat over there, canola over there. So I'm going to plant wheat in this middle field here just so we cover all of the steps that are shown on the other fields, and I just want to start somewhere, but I cannot plant it straight away because if we look on this crop calendar here, I can only plant wheat in September. So we're going to do some field work here, and then we're going to move into September to do the actual planting of the seeds, but it'll all make sense as we go through. I will also show you how we then store the wheat and when to sell it as well. So we'll go all through these stages. So let's move on to the first one, which is plowing or cultivating. Hit the next video in the series. Let's get started.